needs to win more on Saturday down in Austin, Texas? Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck? See, whenever we have these must-see, generational, can't-miss matchups in college football, we put the quarterbacks on the stage as if they are prize boxers trying to go for the heavyweight title of the world. Who delivers the knockout punch? Which passer has the crushing blow that sucks the soul out of the stadium? Who ends up catapulting their team to national championship success? And here's the thing. You can make an argument that Quinn Ewers needs this win to set the tone for Texas in the SEC moving forward. You could say that Carson Beck needs this win to bring back an aura and energy down to Athens because it just feels like Georgia's not on the same path right now. The bottom line is both these quarterbacks have an argument for why they need to win more. And I'm going to break it down for you. So welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode, and download the podcast version of the show. That way you can keep up to date with everything that we're doing here on the channel. Make sure that also you're following us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me for back and forth banter at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall on game days at RHOBACK.com when you use the promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. You got the fall foliage pictures coming up. You got sweater weather coming around the corner. You want to be dressed to nine on game days. Do so. RHOBACK.com, promo code SECU. So the number 1 Longhorns play host to the number 5 Bulldogs. And this is going to be a primetime event that we will be talking about because it has college football playoff implications. It has absolutely national championship aspirations. And it feels like at this point, the winner of the game, even though F1 is going to be in town, kind of catapults themselves into the driver's seat and is off to the races about making it to not just the college football playoff, but also the SEC championship, which at this point kind of coexist with each other. But it does feel like both of these quarterbacks have a stake of why they need a win. Let's start off with Carson Beck. Beck was a game away from leading his team back to the college football playoff and potentially to a national championship. He looked good last year. In fact, when you look at his numbers, he was one of the more sufficient quarterbacks, and it never felt like he could die. Like even in games that you never felt like that Georgia was pulling away, when they did, it was because number 15 was catching that second wind and kind of putting himself on a pedestal, which is why we kind of viewed him as one of the best quarterbacks going into this year. So far, that really hasn't been the case. Less than 2,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns against 5 interceptions. He has a passer rating right now currently at 159 and a completion percentage at 67.9. He's only had one of 400-yard performance, and that came against Alabama, but it also came after one of the more rocky first halves. In fact, if you go back and look at that game, the first half was a reason why they had to kind of put themselves in the category of nearly pulling off the biggest comeback in SEC football history. Beck has not been himself. The offense hasn't been itself. Two things that we know about Georgia football is they can run the football and they have an exceptional defense. Neither have been on display in Athens this year. And then you go and you look back. What has been the marquee win for Carson Beck? In his entire tenure since taking over, don't get me wrong, has looked like the quarterback that can lead you to a college football playoff, has looked like a quarterback that can take you over the edge and put you in the SEC championship game. He did that last year. Looks like a quarterback that can easily find a way to be able to say, I am the best in my conference. But what's the win that we're pinpointing? Is it against maybe a top 15 Mizzou? Is it against maybe Ole Miss, where you trusted your ground game as much as your passing attack? Is it against a top 20 Kentucky team where you completed 80% of your passes, 4 touchdowns, and eventually Kentucky kind of fell off the wagon? Where is the win? And I'm not putting in the Orange Bowl because of, again, how many opt-outs were on both sides of the football. It's an unfair advantage. But a win in Austin. Do you remember what happened when LSU came down there in 2019 and we saw Joe Burrow light up the stat sheet but also silence the crowd, and fans were flying to the exits wondering what the hell went wrong? It was because that was the moment where everything started to click for number 9. That was the moment where we started to see the energy and the aura change for LSU. They finally felt like a team that said, hey, we can go into any environment that has ever existed and we are going to own it. We're going to be so good. We're going to be content. And if we play this version of football, doesn't matter if we go up against Tennessee, doesn't matter if we go up against Georgia, doesn't matter if we play Texas A&M, Alabama, they're going to have to meet our intensity, our level. our energy. And if they can't do that, take your L and go ahead and just head on back to the exits. They went on to win a national championship. Joe Burrow went on to win the Heisman Trophy, and he ultimately put together one of the greatest seasons we have ever seen in college football. But it started off in a road environment against a hostile fan base that felt like things had turned the corner. Texas right now is the only complete team in college football. They are the only team that when you look at top to bottom, there are no flaws. But you can say, well, who have they played? Well, welcome on in Georgia. This feels like the ultimate game where Texas in years past would find a way to Texas. All the hype, all the persona, all the energy kind of raises up to the roof, and then it comes crashing on down because Carson Beck, number 15, has the game to remember. This is the legacy game. Why was he better than Brock Vandagriff? Why was he considered to be right alongside a player such as Stetson Bennett? Why is he good enough to take us to the final boss mode down in Atlanta and actually hoist up the conference title, get a first-round bye, put ourselves in a great situation to still be the standard of college football? You want to do it? You can do it in this game. You had an opportunity against Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and ultimately you didn't get there. But you can in this one. But I can flip it and say kind of the same thing about Quinn Ewers. See, Quinn Ewers so far has that ultimate legacy game. He has the moment underneath his belt because unlike Carson Beck, last year he marched into Tuscaloosa and not against a first-year coach in Kalen DeBoer, but against the GOAT, against the greatest to ever walk the sidelines in our favorite sport. And he dominated with a 3-touchdown day and a 10-point victory over Alabama and walked off that field feeling confident. And then, just for good measure, well, I want to make sure I have another legacy game, one that the Big 12 will have to put my name in the history books, and it may be pretty challenging to beat. So he goes down to Arlington. He goes to AT&T Stadium. He finds a way to set a Big 12 record while helping the Longhorns finally win a Big 12 title in their last year as part of the conference, and then they make the college football playoff. So he has 2 legacy games. But that was a Big 12 team. Now, see, that was a team that was masquerading last year as a Big 12 team, but they really had that SEC energy. We know what they were kind of doing when they were recruiting. We knew what type of players they were targeting. We knew what they could be, absolutely. But they were still a Big 12 team. That logo didn't read SEC, where it just means more. It doesn't. But it can now. Everyone's saying that Texas hasn't played anybody. Everyone is saying that who has Texas gone up against? Oh, they went to Ann Arbor. They took down Michigan. They were the bullies of the Big Blue. Well, Michigan, look at how they've looked the rest of the year. That's not a good team in college football. That's a horrendous team in college football. In fact, they're lucky to be in the AP Top 25, which, by the way, they are. I'm not trying to be facetious here. But what about Oklahoma? The Red River Shootout. Game of all games. Great defense. Quinn's a little bit rusty. You trust the ground game. You average nearly 6 yards a carry. You have multiple running backs find their way into the end zone. And yes, you get a touchdown pass off to Gunnar Helm, but it wasn't the best performance. And now we say, well, look at Oklahoma. Look at what they've done so far. I mean, they're nearly a pick 6 away from losing every game in conference play. They're sitting at 1-2. Who have they beaten? Tennessee, not that good. Auburn, need a pick 6. You're not that good of a team. So what's going to be the excuse when Georgia comes to town in their backyard and Quinn Ewers lights it up? The way that we have those legacy games where we talk about players. Johnny Manziel at Alabama. Cam Newton at Alabama. How about we even talk about Stetson Bennett in the college football playoff? Any one of those guys. We put them on a pedestal because if they got that win. They got that signature win. And for Texas, people still are doubting them. Yours truly isn't. I can tell you right now, there's a difference between being a good conference team and being a great team in general. And Texas has surpassed all expectations about what should be indoctrinated in the SEC. They fit the mold. And right now, they are the mold. If you want to find a way to be able to get to a college football playoff, follow what Texas is doing and basically copy them. Imitation is a form of flattery. It's not a bad thing. But if Quinn Ewers wins this game at home, and he slices and dices up Georgia's secondary, and he finds a way to avoid the pass rush, whether it be Michael Williams, whether it be C.J. Allen, whether it be Monson, whoever it is, coming to go ahead and capitalize and bring him down. Well, then what's there to say? Texas came on into the Big 12, They dominated last year's Big 12 team against Alabama, that for years was the standard of college football. They've made the jump to the SEC. They went on the road and they beat up on a team that just won a national title. They single-handedly, basically with one arm tied behind their back and trusting only their legs, beat a rival in one of the greatest environments in college football. Oh, and the team that has been basically owning the sport for the last several years, yeah, they lost them too. So what is there to say at this point whenever it comes to Quinn Ewers and this Texas team? Quinn Ewers gets a win. Texas now is right at the forefront of all conversations of being a perfect premier team in the SEC. Carson Beck gets a win. Well, Georgia's back to where it is, and Carson Beck is secured in his legacy down in Athens, Georgia. And both these teams now who get the win are on the trajectory to go to Atlanta. And if you make it to Atlanta, you make it to the college football playoff. No doubt about it. I have already written Texas's name in permanent ink as a college football playoff team because of the way they looked. You could get it tattooed on your body saying Texas college football playoff representative with the win this weekend. But both these quarterbacks are trying to prove something. I can be the reason why we change the culture, why we get to win counts, titles, conference championships, be in the national playoff conversation, and this becomes the new standard down here. You want to live in my legacy? You want to be playing behind what I've been able to do? You got to meet my intensity. That's what we believe, and that's what every player is going to believe. Both these quarterbacks need a win. For Quinn Ewers, it's a win for the program to set the standard, to earn the respect by all 15 other teams. They belong, and they are what we believe is SEC material. And for Carson Beck, it's a win just to say I was always the right guy. I always could get this done. This was my moment. This was my Quinn Ewers of 2023. But let me know in the comment section down below, who needs a win more? Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, who comes out on top? Which quarterback plays better in this game? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that you download the podcast version of the show. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter and Instagram. And check out all of our great work at SECUnfiltered.com. A heavyweight battle resides in the 40 acres. Who comes out on top? Who cares? We're all winners. Peace.